She grabbed my box off the porch and laughed, saying, HOA inspection. I ran outside and she waved the package like a trophy. You people leave junk everywhere, she snapped, already walking away. I stayed quiet as the camera blinked red above my door, and my kid asked why his shoes never arrived. That night, another box vanished. Then another. I reported it, and she called the cops on me instead, claiming I was stealing from the HOA storage. An officer looked at me like I was lying while she smiled, arms crossed, sure she'd won. The next morning, a new package sat on my step, plain and boring. She didn't know it would turn her hands bright pink the second she touched it. 10 minutes later, she stormed back, screaming, gloves off, dye dripping down her wrists. I just pointed at the camera and said, "That color looks permanent. You can steal a box, but you can't steal the truth." She tried to wash it off in my yard, snow melting pink around her boots. "You set me up," she yelled, then dialed again, voice shaking now. This time, 2 HOA board members showed up, acting serious, asking for my ID like they owned the street. One of them slapped a notice on my door saying I was fined for tampering with HOA property. I peeled it off and folded it slow, because the camera caught that too. Karen leaned close and whispered, "I'll have your house locked by tonight." That's when a tow truck rolled in and hooked my car right in front of my kid. He asked if we were in trouble. I told him to go inside and started downloading the footage to my phone as the driver drove away. I didn't chase the car. I walked back to the porch and pressed one button on my phone. The officer from earlier called me 5 minutes later, voice low. "Why does your footage show her taking boxes every night for a month?" Before I could answer, Karen came back with her husband, loud, angry, saying I was spying on her. He flashed his badge like it ended the story. I looked at it, then looked at him. "You still using your middle name at work?" I asked. His face changed. The smile dropped. Karen froze. The officer arrived again, slower this time, watching everyone. I handed over my phone and said nothing. The video played. Pink hands, stolen boxes. Her voice saying, HOA inspection. The officer sighed and said, "Ma'am, step away from the porch." Karen started yelling that the footage was fake, that I edited it, that I was setting her up. Her husband tried to talk over the officer, saying this was an HOA matter and he'd handle it internally. That's when the officer asked him to step aside, alone. I could see the quiet argument near the patrol car. No shouting, just sharp words. Karen kept looking back at him, waiting for backup that never came. Then the officer walked back and asked Karen a simple question. "Why is HOA property dye-stained and hidden in your garage?" Her mouth opened, then closed. I watched her hands shake. That's when the garage door across the street slowly lifted on its own. And bright pink boxes were stacked wall to wall inside. Someone had hit the remote by mistake, and everyone saw it. The street went dead quiet. Phones came out. Neighbors stepped closer. Karen rushed to slam the garage button, but it was too late. Pink stains were everywhere. On the boxes, on the floor, even on her shoes. The officer didn't raise his voice. He just nodded and said, "Ma'am, you're being detained." Her husband froze. He finally looked at me, really looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I leaned in and said softly, "You should have read the property lines and the law." The officer asked me if I wanted to press charges. I looked at my porch, empty again, no missing packages, no fear. I said yes. Karen started crying, saying it was a misunderstanding, that she thought the boxes were abandoned. The officer glanced at the dye-stained labels and replied, "Funny, abandoned boxes don't have your name written on them." They cuffed her right there. Not rough, just firm. The sound of the cuffs clicked louder than her crying. Her husband tried one last move, saying this would destroy the HOA. The officer looked at him and said, "You already did that yourself." Another patrol car showed up, then a city truck. Turns out the HOA had no right to issue fines on this street at all. The boundary map was wrong, filed years ago by Karen herself. I watched as an official taped a notice on the HOA sign at the corner, declaring it under review. Neighbors whispered. Some nodded at me. One said, "About time." Karen was led away. Pink still on her hands, still blaming everyone but herself. I picked up my kid's new shoes from the porch and felt the weight lift. She thought power came from rules. but it really comes from the truth. By morning, the street felt different. Quiet, but not calm. A white envelope was taped to my door. Inside was a notice saying a lien had already been filed against my house weeks ago. Not by the city, but by the HOA's lawyer. I laughed once, then stopped. That lien could freeze everything. Sell, refinance, even repairs. My phone buzzed. A blocked number. "You should settle this fast," a man said. "Karen made mistakes, but the lien is real." I asked him one thing. "Can you tell me the HOA account number used to file it?" Silence. He hung up. I walked into the old study, pulled a dusty folder from the safe behind the wall. Inside was a deed dated 1870, stamped and signed. This land was registered before the HOA even existed, and there was something else in that folder. A letter from the county written years ago, warning the HOA to never touch this property again. I smiled. They filed a lien on the house they were legally warned to stay away from. The real cops came back that afternoon. Not rushed this time. Calm. Serious. Karen stood on her porch smiling, until the county clerk stepped out of the car with a thick file. He read the warning letter out loud, the one telling the HOA to never touch my land. Karen's face went pale. Her lawyer tried to talk, then stopped when the officer asked about the fake lien number. Turns out it was filed using an HOA account that didn't exist anymore. Fraud. The officer turned to Karen and said, "Ma'am, you're being cited for filing a false legal claim and trespassing." Her smile broke. She started yelling about authority, rules, power, but nobody was listening now. Neighbors opened doors. Phones came out. One by one, HOA board members arrived, quiet and scared. By sunset, the lien was erased. The HOA was fined, and Karen was removed from the board on the spot. The officer handed me a clean title report and said, "Your home is clear, forever." I watched my kid run across the yard, laughing safe. The house stood the same as it had for 155 years, still ours. I locked the door that night and thought one thing: you don't steal history and walk away.